So, hi everyone. I see many familiar faces around, but let me introduce myself for those who don't know me. I'm Alberto, and I started working at Moonpig like a bit more than 1 year ago. And so let me introduce you the team that I found when I joined the company. Right? Let's move back to May 2017. So back then, the team was composed by 7 developers, I counting myself, 2 QAs and 2 CI agents. And today, I would like to focus in our continuous integration process and all the transformations that happens and the way we evolved it till it became a continuous delivery process, right? So today I want to give you, right now, this evening, I want to give you a snapshot of how that process looked like back then. So let's start with our test pyramid, right? So back then we had like tons unit tests in the bottom of the pyramid, a big chunk of UI tests on top of it, composed by 90 UI tests, which used to take like around like 3 hours to run, right? And let's have a look like a bit deeply how those UI tests look like. So they were XCUI tests, and they were running complete journeys of the app. And as you see, we had 90 tests running complete journeys of the app, which means that there were a lot of overlapping, like in features, like for example, sign in or registration. So all the network requests that we're doing in those tests were proxied by Charles. We were proxying them into a mock server written in Java, which was using the library that is written there, which is mock server client. And the reason why is because we wanted to avoid the non-deterministic world of having real requests happening in our test. So back then, we didn't have like clear strategy of how to evolve those tests. So the way the team was adding tests to the top of the pyramid was that everyone was adding them. So the trend was that the time that those tests used to consume was increasing starting from 3 hours, right? So with those tests in place, let me give you a quick look how our pipeline looked like. So whenever you start a new feature, you develop that feature following TDD, and then also getting quick feedback loop from your product owner and your UX. So whenever you are happy with your code and you get the approval from both of them, you were ready to create a pull request. So that pull request was running all of our unit tests, and also was uploading a build to Crashlytics beta. And in the meanwhile, there was like a back and forth discussion between one of your colleagues doing the code review. So whenever you got the approval from your colleague, a QA was doing a manual testing, checking that all the acceptance criteria were met. And whenever you got the approval from your product owner, your UX, one of your colleagues there, and one of the QAs, you were ready to merge your ticket back into develop. But before considering that ticket done, we moved it into another state, which is approved. And what's happened here is that overnight, we were running all that big chunk of UI tests that we had on top of the pyramid. And the reason why we were running them overnight is because they took a long time to run, and we had 2 agents, so we didn't want to block one of the agents during the daytime, right? So eventually, you move your ticket today, you go tomorrow to the office, and those tests are green, so you are ready to go, right? So let me show you how the release process, which is the last bit of that picture that I want to show you, looked like by then. So the first time I had to release the app, I sat with one of my colleagues and I wrote a stance document in which I put down all of the steps that you have to follow in order to release, right? So the document is the one that you see scrolling in the screen. So of course I'm not going to let it finish because they were like 21 freaking manual steps just to deliver the app to the App Store, right? So this is the picture that I found when I joined Moonpig. So let's move on to the following months, and let's see how this picture evolved and how this picture works in practice. So starting from our testing. So the way the mock server was evolving is basically everyone was adding their own JSON, they were adding their own paths, they were adding their own needs for the particular stories. So then what's happened there is we started seeing hacks all around the place sooner than later. And this situation led us into the following one, which is what we see here is that we have a bunch of tests in the approved column, and eventually the regression was failing during the night. So in the Standups, So during the Standups, we were having this conversation quite often, which is someone was asking the regression failed. Does anyone know why? So then we started a guessing game, thinking well, might be because we add something, but the reality is we didn't have a clear understanding of why those regression failed, right? So then here you have two options. One, or you fix the regressions, wait overnight again, or you fix the regression and you run them in the daytime. So the common case here was that we were moving the tickets into dawn, and someone was taking care of those failing tests. So let's move on and let's see how the release process looked like. So it's fair to say that those 21 steps were not something that you had to be 100% focused, right? But it's also true that those steps were stopping you for being focused on something else. So what we saw here is that we're starting creating Jira tickets just for the release process. So we started planning releases within the planning sessions. So, but the problem here were not those 21 steps. The problem was the manual part of it. So let me show you something that is a bit embarrassed for me, but it's something that happened to me. So what's happened is I asked to my line manager for a copy for the What's New Textbox in the App Store. So along with the copy, my line manager sent me a question. Basically, he wanted me to add the Apple Pay as a payment method in the description metadata, right? Of course, I didn't read it, and I thought the question was part of the copy. So I submitted the app. Yeah, I did it. I submitted the app with the question inside the What's New Textbox. Luckily, before pressing the publish button, I realized it, and then I submitted the app again. But it was super close, and our users are quite picky with that, and then they used to upload pictures to Twitter and stuff like that. So it would be a really good one. And the other thing that I didn't mention in our pipeline is that whenever you were moving a ticket into dawn, you were in charge of adding the fixed version to that ticket. So if you relied in a developer who already matched the pull request back to develop to do something else with a ticket, of course he or she is not gonna do it. So what's happened here is when the release master, let's call it, was releasing the app, he had to go through all of the tickets without a fixed version and guess if that ticket went to that version or not. So it wasn't a really accurate process. So this was in summer 2017. So if we move on to September, what's happened here is we started a new feature, and we thought that we needed a way to change those UI tests, which were not too reliable, and basically we end up creating something different, something faster to run, something more reliable. So we call them screen tests. So let's have a look to them. So again, those are XCUI tests, but the main difference with those mock server tests is that instead of running complete journeys, those are running individual features, individual screens, and also the main difference also is the JSON is not coming from any mock server, but instead is defining the scope of a test. So the way we achieved that was through the launch argument. So in the scope of a test, you were defining two things. One, the module that you wanted to execute, and also the JSON that you wanted to render. So the good thing here is that you were able to test things like error statuses for a screen, stuff like that. So, and also the other good thing is like they were not overlapping between the tests. So the way we evolved those tests was the real problem, because the people working on that new feature were adding tests to that new screen test, but they stopped adding tests to this mock server one, right? So what's happening is like this mock server become obsolete. So we didn't have tests for the new feature in the mock server. So if we move on, and now we are in 2018, January, February. So I remember those months with a lot of fire. And the reason why is because we had to create a role, which was the firefighter, right? So this firefighter had three main responsibilities. One was to fix those tests that were failing, like fix some bugs, and also he was filtering some things that was coming into the team. So basically the idea was to keep the team focused on the stories and don't interrupt them. So let me remind you how the team was before May 2018, sorry. So there were 7 developers, 1 firefighter, 2 QAs, and 2 CI agents. So life is hard and things happen. So what you see here is that our company decided to make redundant all of our QAs across the company. So also I didn't mention that, but our company is part of a group of companies which is Photobox Group. So by that time, Photobox was working in a different project, a new project, and they required some resources. So they took 2 of our engineers, and finally the 3 guys in the middle, they were contractors. They didn't renew their contract. So effectively what's happened is that we end up with three iOS developers in the team. So as you can imagine here, it would be a suicide to carry on with the same practices that we were doing before. So we had to assess all of our process, and starting from the test and then checking the pipeline and everything, because basically it would be like completely crazy to carry on with the same things. So starting from our test pyramid, let me give you a quick look to how the process looked like and the reason why we decided to do it like that. So what you can see here is that we got rid of this mock server test. The reason why is because it was unacceptable to maintain a suite of tests that was taking like 3 hours to run, but was giving us zero confidence. So we didn't trust them, so we got rid of them. Also, we got rid of the screen test, not because they were not working for us, because they were working for us, but the overhead on maintaining all that technology wasn't acceptable for our team, for our necessity back in that day. So instead, what we did was we added snapshot test, and we also added top of the pyramid 9 end-to-end tests, or what we call them red root tests. So let's have a look to how those snapshot tests looks like. So the reason why we add them is because they are, by definition, they are closer to a unit test than they are to a UI test. So it means that they have the same benefits that a unit test has, which is they are fast to run, they are reliable, and they are super easy to maintain. And also they give us the ability to test some statuses of the UI that we cannot test in those 9 end-to-end tests. So what we are using for those snapshots is the library that was created by Facebook. Is they stopped maintaining them, and now it's maintained by Uber. So if we see now those end-to-end tests, so let's have a look to them. So now they are again XCUI tests, and they are running complete journeys, but those journeys are slightly different from the one that we were running in the mock server. So those journeys are journeys that our customer use the most. So we took the 9 most used journeys in our app, and we converted it into 9 tests. And the other main difference is that we are running them against a real environment. So we wanted to speed them up a bit. So what we did is, like, we didn't want to go through the signing process and the registration process like 9 times. So we just go once, and we inject the status of a user through the launch arguments in the same way we did it for the screen test. So now you might be asking yourself, like, is this guy crazy? They are running tests against a real environment. Yes, we are. And it's also true that we had to face like many challenges, because now we have questions like, what's happening if the server is down, or what's happening if the data change during the the execution of a test, or there are many things that we need to consider. And I want to share with you some of the techniques that we use in order to mitigate those errors. So this is something that I didn't know, which is that Postman is able to run automated tests. So what we did is we created a lightweight suite of tests, which is executing the endpoints that we have in our app. So effectively, what we did, we created a dependency between our UA test and that lightweight suite of tests. So this technique gives us the ability to have a picture in the CI that the one that looks like that you see in the screen. So it's super easy for us to understand if a test failed because of if the server was down, or if the test failed for something else. So this is important for us, because whenever you want to check or you want to investigate a failure, you want to avoid noise in the CI, right? So, but yeah, this failing test that you see in the screen, right? It might be also because of the server was down or whatever reason, because it's the nature of those tests those 9 tests. So we added another technique, which is a retry policy. So the way we do this retry policy is like, within the test, we retry every action 3 times. And if one of those actions fail, we retry the whole test again before considering it as a failure. So for doing that, we are using a third-party plugin for Fastlane, which is Fastlane Plugin Test Center, and we are using an action which is multi-scan. So let's have a look to the final bit of the testing, which is now we don't have QAs, so we need a way to easily identify issues, identify like why this test failed. So we added this this tool, which is called XCTest HTML report. So what we see here in the screen is a test that failed, and it failed because it ran twice, right? And this is what you see is a report of the test, that was run the second time, right? So what we can do here, we can go through all of the steps that the test is performing and check out why this test failed. So in this particular case, we have a test which is trying to buy flowers, right? So at some point, this test will try to pay for that flower. So here we have the payment screen. So the action that failed here is this payment action, right? So what the test is trying to do here is waiting for that action to finish, that request to finish. But eventually, we already know that it will fail, and it will retry it 3 times. Let me have some water. So yeah, that's the second time that it retries it, and eventually this test will fail. So we can go through all of the screenshots that we have and try to work out why this test failed, right? So this is the third time that it retries, and yeah, eventually you get the assert, and that's it. So it's super easy for us to go to the CI, check that test that failed, and then see why it failed. So with all those tests in place, let's have a look to the pipeline now. So nothing changed in the in progress column. So the only difference here is like if you are working on a UI component, then you are writing a snapshot test. The other difference here in the code review is that our CI now is running the snapshot test as part of this pull request job. And the same for the testing part. So the only difference here is like, if you remember, we don't have QAs. So one of our devs is doing the manual testing. So what we've changed is what's happened after. So whenever you got the approval from your product owner, your UX, one of the devs doing the code review, and one of the devs doing the manual testing, then we are ready to merge our ticket back to develop. So this merge is triggering a job which we call integration, and this job is running the whole suite of tests, including those end-to-end retro tests. And whenever they finish, we upload a build to TestFlight. The reason why is because we don't have QA, so we want everyone to be using the latest version of the app, everyone within the team. So eventually, you are ready to go, right? So if you remember, our release process used to take like around half-day release and half-day the submission and half-day to publish the release. So spending one day, like probably one day for one developer of 8 every 2 weeks wasn't too much overhead. But one day for every 2 weeks or every week for 3 developers, for a team of 3 developers, is too much. So we automated all those 21 steps, and now our release process looks like the thing that you see on the screen. So you go to Team City, you want to release the app, so you submit it by pressing a button, and whenever you got the approval from Apple, you publish the release just by pressing another button, right? So let's have a look how, under the hoods, how these jobs are working, or the way they work, right? So starting from the release job, so the first thing that the release job does is it goes to Jira, it grabs all the tickets in the DOM column, and it attaches the fixed version to them, and it closes them. And also, it creates a Jira release version. So now, with that Jira release version and all those tickets with the fixed version, the right fixed version on them, we go to GitHub and we create a release. And the release notes that we use for that GitHub release is based on those tickets that from Jira. So we also add a link to the Jira release, because now here we just have like stories and bugs, but we don't have like tasks. So you can see everything in the Jira release. And finally, we build our app for the App Store, and we upload the app to the App Store along with the metadata. So there is another main difference here, which is that now the metadata lives in our repository. So it gives us the confidence. So it means that if you want to change something in the metadata of the app, you have to create a pull request, and someone needs to review it, and you cannot do the thing that I did with the what's new Textbox, because, well, you can do it if someone reviews it and don't realize that about that question. So let's have a look to this what's new Textbox. So this is an interesting part of the metadata of the App Store, and the reason why is because sometimes you want to release the app, but you don't want to shout about a specific feature. So what we did is we created a pool of generic enough messages. So if you don't specify the what's new Textbox in tests in Team City, then we just grab one of those messages from the pool, and we just use that one for the release, and we put it at the bottom of the list. So the next following one is ready to be picked up for the following release, right? So finally, you release the app, you submitted the app, and Apple approves it. So you go to Team City again, and you tap on this publish release job. So this publish release job, what it's doing is just tapping the button for you, which I'm pretty lazy, and also it's sending a Slack message and the Slack message is based on the GitHub release notes. And also we add a link to the Fabric Crashlytics so everyone can see how the new version is performing, right? So everything that you've seen is powered by Fastlane, a couple plugins and a couple custom actions using like Jira. It's a Jira client written in Ruby, but nothing else. So to sum up, I want to share with you some learnings that I got through this last year, which is best practices are there to help you. So, and sometimes they might not be the best thing that suits your needs. So what does it mean is like, I don't know, you go to a blog post and you read like something super cool that you want to try out in your app. So before doing that, I think you might need to think twice why you are doing that and think about the context, because the context matters. So you need to think about like time constraints, like the type of app that you are releasing, I don't know, requirements, stuff like that. So think about twice before starting something new. And another thing is like if you are maintaining a suite of tests, which is not stopping you for releasing, just stop doing that. Because the reason why you have tests there is to give you confidence while releasing. If you lose that, then just doesn't make sense. And finally, I mean, the process is there. You create the process to help you. If at some point you feel that the process is stopping you, just change it. Just don't follow dogmas. Just do whatever feels natural and fits your team. So, yeah. Just one more thing. So, I don't know if you remember the name of the talk, which is how to replace people with robots, right? So when I wrote that, I actually was joking. And the reason why is because now we are hiring. So hopefully next year I will be here talking about how to replace robots with people. So thank you for listening.